الوفد المرافق. النهارده الحقيقه هنشهد اتفاقيه الخدمات الاستشاريه لبرنامج الطروحات مع مؤسسه التمويل الدوليه. ولو حضرتك سمحت لي دكتور مصطفى كلمه للحضور باللغه الانجليزيه ويليها بعض التعقيبات باللغه العربيه. Your Excellency, Dr. Mustafa Madbouly, the Prime Minister, Mr. Makhtar Diop, Managing Director of the IFC, my fellow Excellencies, Ministers, and ladies and gentlemen. First, I would like to welcome our dear friend Makhtar Diop, the Managing Director of the IFC, here to Egypt. This is the first time in his capacity as the head of IFC. Of course, you were here before as leading on infrastructure from the World Bank and also at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh. And also, we're very happy to welcome you here in the new capital. In the new capital. I would like to thank the IFC for their impactful partnership and cooperation in harnessing the private sector investments in Egypt and through mobilizing financing, as well as through the advisory services, which extend to many sectors. And it was only last May that in the presence of Dr. Mustafa, we launched together our country partnership framework with the World Bank that covers the period between 2023 and 2027. And all of us know that the strategy is underpinned by important national strategies, Vision 2030, as well as the National Climate Strategy, and most recently, the state-owned policy. Through the CPF with the World Bank, we aim to build opportunities in order to enhance greater productivity, promote inclusive and sustainable growth, as well as build resilience to climate change and increasing private sector participation. We are gathered here today to sign the Transaction Advisory Service Agreement, TASA. It's the first operation to be signed under the new CPF and also under the leadership of the new President of the World Bank, Mr. Ajay Banga. This agreement addresses Objective 2 of the CPF, namely strengthening competition to a level playing field with state-owned enterprises and supporting the government's SOE reform agenda, and it aims to increase private sector engagement by reducing disincentives. Let me just mention, as Egypt's governor of the World Bank, which includes the IFC, we are very happy that IFC has one of its biggest programs here in Egypt. It's more than $7 billion in investment projects since the start of the partnership. And also under the CPF, there's an additional $2 billion, which also are going to be dispersed during the next 5 years. I would also like to mention that IFC, in addition to the financing, provides advisory services and diagnostic reports. One of the most important was the country private sector diagnostic. This was done with the government, and it identified very important opportunities for private sector engagement. Today, we are signing the agreement, IFC as a strategic advisor for the government's asset monetization program, and it will focus on increasing private capital and know-how to manage state-owned assets. The agreement is in cooperation with the Asset Monetization Unit, which the Prime Minister will be speaking about in more detail. And also, this is going to offer technical assistance and developing an implementation plan, identifying a privatization model for each SOE. And most importantly, of course, the IFC can provide financing to the companies that will be part of this. At the end, I look forward to our extended partnership with IFC. I look forward to moving forward on the agreement today and thank everyone for that. شكرا جزيلا ويعني أدعو الأستاذ مختار ديوب يلقاء كلماته. مختار, please go ahead with your word.
Thank you so very much, and Your Excellency Dr. Mustafa Madbouly, Prime Minister of Egypt. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to see you again. I remember the first time we met, I was working on infrastructure, visiting Egypt, and this project of building a new city was announced at that time, and I'm very pleased to see that it's becoming a reality in such a short time. I know also that you're taking a time on your calendar because you just landed from a long trip, and we appreciate very much your presence to this ceremony. Your Excellency Dr. Rania El Mashad, Minister of International Cooperation and World Bank Group Governor, our friend and colleague, it's a pleasure to be here with you. Dr. Ala El Said, Minister of Planning, Your Excellency Rami Abdou El Nassar, Deputy Governor of Central Bank, Your Excellencies Cabinet Ministers, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here today to sign this important agreement between the government of Egypt and IFC to support the implementation of Egypt's asset monetization program. I applaud the government of Egypt's commitment to building a sustainable, resilient, and inclusive economy by empowering the private sector, and I am proud that IFC is your trusted advisor in finding ways to further mobilize the private sector to support the country's ambitious development goals. The global economy is on a precarious footing, with countries around the world still facing severe compounding shocks. The aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, global macroeconomic and geopolitical challenges, food and energy crisis, and surging inflation and debt. According to the World Bank latest Global Economic Prospect report, global growth will slow to 2.1% in 2023, and trade will grow at less than a third of its pace in the years before the pandemic. In the face of this public crisis, development progress is under threat, yet pressing needs remain. From tackling climate change to building resilience infrastructure or creating much-needed jobs. Public financing alone will not be sufficient to fund these growing development needs and address the current crisis. The call for alternative sources of funding to effectively deal with these global economic shocks and secure the necessary financing for human development and urgent infrastructure investment is more imperative than ever. The private sector has a crucial role to play in Egypt's future. A vibrant private sector plays a vital role in the economy by creating jobs, providing goods and services, stimulating economic growth, and contributing to tax revenues and the efficiency of flow of capital. Last fall, for instance, IFC was proud to partner with other investors to build the largest solar plant and wind farm in Egypt, a crucial step towards achieving the country's energy transition. The launch of the asset monetization program demonstrates the government of Egypt's commitment to expanding the private sector role. A well-implemented asset monetization program presents an opportunity to mobilize and leverage significant additional private sector resources to meet development needs and accelerate economic growth in Egypt. The timely issuance of the government of Egypt State Ownership Policy, SOP, deliver on that, establishing a clear framework for more private sector involvement in the economy. I'm convinced that the agreement that we are signing today will go a long way in expanding private sector contribution to the economy and creating jobs while boosting the competitiveness of Egyptian industries. Furthermore, I'm optimistic that this agreement could set an example for other economies to follow. I would like to express my gratitude to the Excellency, the President Sisi, who take time on his very busy schedule today to meet with me and my delegation and clearly reassess the priorities that he's setting and the roles that the private sector should be and will be playing in the development of Egypt. I'm grateful for his leadership, not only on Egypt, but also talking about issues related to Africa economic integration. He can count on IFC to be supporting his priorities and to support the development of the private sector of Egypt, not only in Egypt, but also to build a resilient African economy. IFC will be a strong partner. I would like to really thank my friend, Dr. Rania El Mashad, our World Bank Group Governor, not only for the role she is playing for this particular exercise, but for the strong voice that she is in the discussion and dialogue that we're having on the future of the financial architecture. Thank you very much for your contribution. I would like also to thank the Governor of Central Bank and Your Excellency, Dr. Mustafa Madbouly, for your leadership and your role. Thank you very much for associating us to this effort.
Thank you very much. شكرا جزيلا أستاذ مختر. دولة رئيس الوزراء ندعو حضرتك للكلمة.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Mr. Makhtar Diop, the Managing Director of the International Finance Corporation, my dear colleagues, ministers, honorable IFC delegation, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you all in your important visit to Egypt. I would like also to take this opportunity to congratulate ourselves for today's remarkable partnership with IFC. Today we begin to operationalize elements of the new country partnership framework, CPF, between Egypt and the World Bank Group for the years 2022 till 2027, which was approved by the World Bank Board of Directors last March. This agreement leverages Egypt's international partnerships and help foster the role of the private sector in Egypt's development process. The other objective of the new CPF focuses on implementing sector reforms that encourage competition and ensure a level of playing field with state-owned enterprises. The government of Egypt believes that enhancing competitive neutrality is very important to increase private sector investment and strengthening productivity, which will be reflected on export competitiveness and job creations. Towards that end, the Higher Council of Investment, led by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, was established, and the government introduced the State Ownership Policy document, which was the result of extensive consultations and deep research involving ministries, key experts, and representatives of the private sector. The document outlines Egypt's strategy regarding the role of the state in the economy and seeks to raise the role of the private sector in the country's economic activity from 30% at present to 65% within 3 years. Moreover, the government has taken additional steps to encourage more private sector participation and investment in the economy through the IPO program that spans across 18 vital economic sectors. To ensure an expedited process, I have established a specialized asset monetization unit at the cabinet. It is tasked with the supervision of the management and implementation of the IPO's program. Today, we signed the Transaction Advisory Services Agreement utilizing IFC's comparative advantage in private sector development and welcomes IFC as a strategic advisor for the government's asset monetization program. IFC is uniquely placed to play this role given its first, neutrality, second, strong reputation for conducting fair and transparent process in the selection of private sector investors, third, multi-sectoral experience covering infrastructure, manufacturing, services, financial markets. Fourth, broad global experience in privatization transactions, IPO, trade sales, and PPP tenders. Fifth, long-standing relationship with Egyptian counterparts and deep knowledge of the local context. Sixth, deep ties with strategic and financial investors focused on Egypt. Under this agreement, the IFC will work in close coordination with the Cabinet's specialized asset monetization unit to operationalize and implement the privatization strategy. The agreement will structure and prepare assets for sale, including improving corporate governance and ultimately the implementation of selected approved transactions in the second phase of the program. Ladies and gentlemen, today's agreement strengthens our partnership as we focus on harnessing private capital and the know-how to manage state-owned assets. We look forward to collaboratively work together and with other stakeholders to successfully implement it. Once again, I welcome you in Egypt and thank you all. Thank you very much.
واسمحوا لي يمكن في كلمة سريعة جدا باللغة العربية. الحقيقة النهاردة احنا بنشهد الحقيقة حدث مهم جدا في خطة الحكومة اللي أعلنت عنها في موضوع الطروحات وزيادة مساهمة القطاع الخاص في الاقتصاد المصري. احنا يمكن كنا أعلنا من فترة عن عدد من الشركات اللي احنا حددناها بصورة تقديرية ب 32 شركة اللي الدولة المصرية بتعتزم طرحهم سواء لمستثمرين استراتيجيين أو من خلال الطرح العام في البورصة. وبالفعل احنا واخدين خطوات تنفيذية ونأمل إن شاء الله قريبا في الإعلان عنها في عدد من هذه الأصول. ده غير بالفعل شركتين طرحناهم، كان شركة باكين وجزء من الشركة المصرية للاتصالات اللي بالفعل تم إنهاء أعماله. ولكن هنا يمكن عشان نضمن استدامة وحوكمة المنظومة على مدى طويل، هنا كان الشراكة المهمة جدا مع مؤسسة التمويل الدولية التابعة للبنك الدولي في إطار البرنامج أو إطار القطري للشراكة ما بين البنك الدولي ومصر، اللي هي هتمتد لمدة 5 سنين. احنا بنستعين بمؤسسة التمويل الدولية بحيث يكون هو الاستشاري للحكومة المصرية في تنفيذ هذا البرنامج الطموح، ويمكن خبراتهم كبيرة في هذا الموضوع وقدراتهم على تسويق الأصول المصرية هتساعدنا بصورة كبيرة للانتشار والخروج للأسواق الدولية علشان نضمن أفضل استفادة ممكنة من الأصول المصرية في هذا الشأن. وعشان كده يمكن أنا حابب مرة أخرى يعني أشكر مؤسسة التمويل الدولية وطبعا على رأسها المدير التنفيذي مستر مختار ديوب على تواجدهم وحرصهم وجودهم معانا النهاردة بحضور طبعا زملاء الوزراء عشان نشهد توقيع هذا الاتفاق المهم جدا اللي بيؤكد حرص وجدية الدولة المصرية بالكامل على تنفيذ ما تم الالتزام ليه في برنامج الطروحات وزيادة مساهمة القطاع الخاص في الاقتصاد المصري بصفة عامة. وبشكر حضراتكم.
دلوقتي ننتقل إلى مراسم توقيع الاتفاقية. شكرا جزيلا.
Dear viewers, that was our coverage for the press conference by Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouly with the Managing Director of the World Bank Group's International Finance Corporation, Mr. Mokhtar Diop, and the accompanying delegation with the participation of Ministers of International Cooperation, Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, and many ministers of the Economic Group. Earlier today, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received Mokhtar Diop, the Managing Director of the World Bank Group's International Finance Corporation. The meeting was attended by Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, the presidential spokesman, said that during the meeting they discussed the different fields of ties with Egypt and the IFC's role in backing projects in Egypt. The spokesman said the talks focus on the IFC's role within the framework of a deal to be signed in a few minutes, and we are going to witness the signing of the agreement between Cairo and the IFC regarding the technical support and counseling by the body to guarantee the best implementation of the state property policy. Indeed, during the press conference, we heard the speech by the Prime Minister, who said that we are actually delighted to be in partnership, and today's agreement is very important to benefit from the experience of the international body in the privatization and the increasing of the role of the private sector. The agreement also will increase the role of the private sector and set the role for all the economies to follow, as was mentioned mentioned by Mr. Makhtar Diop. He said also it would not stop only the partnership only with Egypt, but also we are, as the World Bank Group International Finance Corporation, setting goals to increase the cooperation of the partnership agreements between Egypt and the World Bank Group's International Finance Corporation. We are seeing Dr. Rania Al-Mashat signing the agreement with the Managing Director of the World Bank Group's International Finance Corporation, Mr. Makhtar Diop. Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouly witnessing the signing of the
ولمتابعة
agreement.
تنفيذ اتفاقية الخدمات الاستشارية لطروحات القطاع الخاص بين جمهورية مصر العربية
The
ومؤسسة
agreement
التمويل
of
الدولية
the World Bank Group signed by Mr. Mahmoud Al-Sa'a, the Counselor for the Prime Minister, and Dr. Rudu, the consultant for the IFC.
شكرا لحضراتكم.
Thank you so much.
السادة الإعلاميين نشكر حضراتكم جزيلا.
Our journalists, thank you so much.